Hey guys, Blake here with another video, and as you may or may not know, I try and breed a lot of fish and raise a lot of fry, and I attribute my success to hatching live baby brine shrimp. Today I'm going to show you the easiest way to get started hatching live baby brine shrimp from items you might even have just lying around at your house. Let's jump straight into the video. Okay, so if we swing the camera around, I'll show you the brine shrimp hatchery that I usually use. We're going to take a similar principle, but we're just going to do it in a more simplified way today. So I'll show you what I use to get started. So this is my brine shrimp hatchery, and the main reason I wanted to show you this was because I wanted to show you that the idea that we're going to use is expandable today. So I'll show you how to make a single one, but you can certainly add to that, make multiple, and have multiple hatcheries going at once. If you have more tanks, and your demand is going to be more than one allocation per day. So basic principle of how this works is you just have an air line running up to the bottom, and that's going to circulate air through there and keep the water moving, which keeps the eggs moving, and then they use this light and the warmth from the light to hatch. Okay, so to get started we're going to need a few things, but nothing too complicated. We've got a pair of scissors. We've got a plastic soda bottle or soft drink bottle. We've got some wire and some implement to cut the wire. You can also substitute that with zip ties if you don't have that lying around. You're going to need an air pump with air line. I've got a USB air pump here, but any air pump will do. And then last but not least, you're going to need some super glue. Another thing you could include as an option is a drill to make a hole in here, but I mean you can just as easily do that with the scissors. And yeah, let's get straight into the build. Okay, so to kick things off, just give your bottle a good rinse out. Make sure there's no leftover liquids in there, whatever you decide to keep on it. And then I just take the label off. Now the principle is basically that we're going to sit this upside down. So you want to make sure that the lid is going to be intact and actually hold water. And then we're going to just cut it at a certain point in here. I like to just find sort of a flat area. Maybe we'll cut it up here somewhere. If there's a line that goes across, that's good because you can make sure you get a nice clean cut. So we'll just sort of work our scissors around and get a nice cut. You could of course use the drill at this point to make your first hole, but I'm going to try and demonstrate this with as little tools as possible, just so everyone can be sure that it's achievable. There we go. So that's going to be our brine shrimp hatchery right there. Keep the bottom though, and actually I like to just cut 2 slots either side, and that way it can easily just slot over the hatchery. It's easier when it's full of water, and serve as a bit of a lid that way so no bugs and things are going to get into your brine shrimp that you're hatching out. So once we have that ready, the next step here is actually we want to get an air line way down to the bottom. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can buy a specially fitted cap that has a inlet for an air line, which is good, but I don't have one of those today, and as I said, we're going to try and do this the simplest way possible. So what I'm going to actually do is take our airline hose. We're going to basically super glue it to the bottom of the bottle. So to do that, take the cap off, thread the airline all the way through. This could be a good project to get the kids to help out on if they've got smaller hands. And then when the airline hose is right at the end, we're just going to apply a bit of super glue there so that we can make sure that it stays in place. Any super glue with cyanoacrylate as the active ingredient is going to be perfectly suitable for this application. We'll just hold it in place there for a few seconds till it bonds. Now you don't want it to go all the way to the bottom because then the air is going to get stuck there against the cap. So you don't want the cap actually blocking your air. You just want it to be, you know, a couple of millimeters or, you know, a percentage of an inch above that. As you can see, it is definitely stuck down there now, and this is how we're going to run our air. So the next question is how are we actually going to make sure it stands, because we need it to stay like this upside down, and obviously if we just sit it on a table like that, it's going to topple over pretty easily. So I think the easiest way to do this is actually to make it a hanging system, and there's a benefit to that as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. So all we have to do there is just make 2 holes either side, and we'll use our wire to actually hang it up. So don't go too close to the edge or they might actually just tear out the top. So just sort of get somewhere round about where you want the maximum height of your water to be, because another consideration in that is that water will come out wherever you make the holes. So make sure that you leave yourself enough room to get a decent amount of brine as well. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made the holes, which you can just see there. And whilst I was at it as well, I also made a hole in the bottom piece, because that way we can thread the airline through and just make everything neat and tidy when that's acting as the lid. So we'll just get ourselves a nice length of wire here now. And all it is just basically creating a bit of a half of a loop sort of thing like that. So there we go, we've got our little handle now, and we can hang that up however we see fit, whether we cable tie that to the inside of a rack or something like that. Now we just take our lid, slide it on top, and we've got a nicely contained little brine shrimp hatchery there. So what we can do now is I'll show you what I would do and why I decided to use a USB air pump for this purpose. So the reason I suggested a hanging brine shrimp hatchery is because if you are like me and you have a racking system like this, what you can actually do is use one of these. This is a reusable zip tie, so you can put it together and then also take it apart. So I would just take this, connect it up to the top of my rack here. We will just put our hanging brine shrimp hatchery up here, just like so. Easy as, and it's already got the light and the heat source that we're looking for, so half the job is actually done. The same principle could definitely be applied to the inside of a hood or wherever you like to keep your aquariums. And the reason I suggest using a USB air pump is because actually what you can do then is, if you only need to intermittently feed out brine shrimp, you can use a power bank like this one, connect it up to the USB air pump. The USB air pump can mount easily to the inside of your rack or wherever you have your shrimp hatchery mounted. And because it's above the waterline, you don't need any check valves or anything like that. And a good power bank like this can run this easily for a couple of days. So now what I'll do is I'll let you know how to actually hatch out brine shrimp and what to expect. So being named brine shrimp, we need some salt water to put into this hatchery to allow the eggs to hatch. Because I keep a saltwater tank, it's easy for me, I just pour in normal salt water. If you live nearby a coastal area, you can also just collect salt water from your local area and use that, so long as it's legal to do so. Otherwise, you'll have to make up your own salt water with some non-iodized salt, some RO water ideally, or tap water will be just fine, and a little pinch of baking powder or bicarbonate soda just to keep the KH up. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up this shrimp hatchery now with our salt water. Then we'll talk about what eggs to get and how much of it to use. Okay, so we've got our salt water happening in there, and now let's talk about brine shrimp eggs. Personally, I've had a lot of success with this Ocean Nutrition brine shrimp eggs can. And I've been using this exact can for over 8 months now and still get a pretty good hatch rate out of it. They do suggest keeping them in the freezer just to get a bit more life out of them, but I don't. I just leave it around the fish room and seems to do pretty fine. Just be mindful that a lot of sellers on eBay and things like that sell brine shrimp cysts, but they actually don't hatch. They're not designed to do that. So I did get caught out with that originally. So just be mindful when you're buying eggs that they're actually the ones that are designed to hatch. And typically what I do is with this can, I've just punched a little hole in the opening there. So I don't really measure out or anything like that. I just sort of just pour them in until they seem like a good amount, but usually I'm aiming for about a teaspoon or a tablespoon worth of brine shrimp eggs in there. So something like that will probably be plenty. Some people out there are probably saying that's not enough. Others are probably saying that's too much, but that's an amount that seems to work pretty well for me. So now it's just a matter of plugging in our power bank here to the USB air pump. And we've got the air circulation happening in there, and we just wait 18 to 24 hours and we should have some freshly hatched brine shrimp ready to feed out. G'day guys, it's the next day now, it's about 18 hours later. And I'm hoping we've got some freshly hatched brine shrimp here. So let's take a close look and just make sure this little contraption is going to work as intended. So the good thing is that our battery pack is still alive and well, so we can unplug that now. and we'll just let it sit here for a while, because the thing about baby brine shrimp is that they're attracted towards the light. So being darker at the top, lighter down the bottom, they will want to congregate here. So what will happen is all the shells basically of the eggs will collect at the top, as you can see here, and the shrimp will actually want to swim down the bottom. Okay, so it's had a chance to settle now, and as you can see, this really dark orange stuff down here is where majority of the baby brine shrimp are attracted to. But even if we go up a little bit higher, you can see a bit of movement in there, and that's all the little baby brine shrimp. It's going to be hard to capture on camera, but you'll just have to, I guess, take my word for it, but maybe you can see some little critters hopping around in there. So we should probably talk at this point about how we are going to actually get the baby brine shrimp out of this bottle. And there's a couple of schools of thought that we can approach with this one. So you need to decide at this point if you want to basically drain off the salt water. Because we have separated them in this way, I would recommend first basically draining off the leftover cysts and shells that are at the top of the mixture here. So first of all, that's easy to do. It's already separated, so you can just pour it and sort of scoop it out if you like. And then after that, if you want to drain the salt water out, I'd recommend pouring it over a paper coffee filter. They're cheap and easily accessible from your supermarket. Me personally, I don't think that the small amount of salt water that is going to get into the tanks really makes that big of a difference, and in my opinion, it probably adds a few minerals and things like that that the fish probably enjoy. So I'm not bothered by it. I never separate it out. So for me, I just take this whole apparatus down, I'll get myself a turkey baster, and we'll feed it out as simple as can be. So there you go guys, that's the cheapest and easiest way that I can think to get baby brine shrimp hatching out in your fish room with minimal tools or sort of expertise or skill required. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I do understand that there's many ways that we can do this, so let me know down below if you've got another way that maybe somebody else watching might be able to read and consider. Yeah, hopefully your fish room goes gangbusters with all the fresh baby brine shrimp that you can now be feeding out. Hopefully breeding kicks off and fry survival rate is greatly improved. Other than that, if you like the video, please like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.